Election day is here, so make sure you get out there, vote, share your opinion, and while you're at it, watch the video, which I guess you already are if you're seeing this. So don't forget to subscribe and like. We'll see you later.
Why is bombing children wrong? I don't know how to make you understand why bombing children is wrong. I'm just being honest with you.
Like, we think it's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, we think it's wrong.
Okay.
We believe it's 100% wrong. But by what standard do you think it's wrong?
Well, international war crimes are being broken. Period. That's a fact. White phosphorus is a crime against humanity. Collective punishment, such as starvation, is a crime against humanity. They're all crimes against humanity. So I don't understand any gray area here. I don't see any gray area, and I don't understand.
Can I interrupt you? Say, what are you guys talking about? Just so I keep it in context.
Yeah, we're talking about basically whether what's happening in Gaza is a genocide or not.
All right. Cool. I was like to get a little context before
That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Right, like, there's got to be like some...
And it's actually our tax dollars too. I do want to point out...
Oh, yeah.
Of all the things we need here, we need housing, we need healthcare, all the things we need here, and our money's going to bomb children. I don't know how to rectify that.
See, it seems pretty wrong. But why? On what reason do we have it?
By bombing children?
No, like, why is there something that's wrong with the world?
Who cares?
Why do, like, overall? Why?
Yeah, overall.
Like in this, I mean,
like
we
why
have an insane...
God, you're missing God? Sorry, I deal with him all the time.
I mean, there's an insane amount of greed. There is... I know the answer you're looking for, that's not what I'm going to say, but...
I don't understand the answer there. I guess I'm just not understanding.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it's not blatantly obvious that bombing children in schools and hospitals.
It is wrong.
Was I correct?
So, but I want to...
Okay, yeah, it's God. That's the thing.
But I want to know then if...
I'm not sure the context. I'm not sure the context, so I'm understanding.
He guessed the answer.
I know what they're...
They were saying what's wrong with the world is that God is not the problem.
But I'm agnostic.
But also,
I know it's
literally,
okay.
they are using God to justify what's happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like,
I
to
don't
say
think that's right.
God is what's missing.
No, I do this all the
and
time.
literally
I do this all the time.
The Bible's being used. When people are saying, no, this is okay to kill these people because it says
Because
in the
our
Bible.
God said that it was okay.
If you believe Jesus is coming back, I would like someone to explain to me why the hell you would want to be standing here supporting a genocide of his children when he does come back. Like, why is that where you want to be when God comes back? Because it's not where I would want to be. I
think Jesus...
Wait, why aren't Christians out here on the front lines fighting for these? Where are the churches? Honestly, I would love to know. I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
Can I ask you who you're
I
representing?
didn't abandon the church. It abandoned me because I couldn't see Jesus in it anymore. And the teachings of Jesus.
I was saying, are you guys representing a certain group or church or just?
Well, they just stumbled upon it.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they just stumbled upon it.
Like, having been raised Christian, I'm having a hard time. You know? Like, where is the church? If the church thinks this is wrong, if you see what's happening, why aren't you out here fighting with us? Why aren't, especially when it's being done in the name of God. Especially when you know that Christians are supporting it because they think it's going to be. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
I don't know how to bomb your way. I don't know how to bomb your way to peace. I don't know how you bomb civilians into a place that God is supposed to be, because I don't think God is there. I mean, that's just plain evil, and they're war crimes. So by any measure, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
I think in my brain with this book, that Jesus sees their suffering and he's suffering with them. He sees their pain, and just like their suffering, he suffered the ultimate punishment through his death, burial, and resurrection. That's
Sorry, go ahead.
So the reason why we're here and why we proclaim Christ is because he suffered the most for all of humanity. he took upon a cross. He had nails driven through his hands. And that the nails driven through his hands represents that same suffering that the people in Gaza are going through.
Well, it doesn't represent it. It doesn't. Palestinians in Gaza right now of starvation, lack of water, hospitals bombed. I mean, what you're talking about happened a long time ago. What we're talking about is happening right now, and it has to be stopped right now. Not in some kind of theoretical world. It physically needs to stop now.
Yeah,
How would you guys stop it? Assist. What would be the idea?
An arms embargo needs to happen.
So you don't think it'll ever stop, so why are you even bringing it up then? It seems like a pointless conversation.
We know.
Well, no, I'm just asking because it seems like a pointless conversation. If it's never going to stop, there's no solution to it. So I'm just trying to understand.
I think the problem is that
I mean, why are you even discussing it if there's no solution to it? Because it
there
seems.
is a solution.
Okay, well, you said there wasn't. What is?
So the solution is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
And what? How is that going to stop?
How does that?
Fighting?
It will not stop pain.
No, I said the fighting. Pain will
won't
always
stop
be.
fighting.
I mean, so again, like
It won't stop suffering.
the Bible is going to do nothing to save or stop any of the injustices that are going on, but we're supposed to look at the Bible and use the Bible for what purpose then if it's not actually going to stop?
To come back to a relationship to God.
What if I'm with God already? What if I have a relationship with God? I'm saying, what if I already have one? Then again, what's the point of this? Because if I mean, my relationship with God says we can do something, whether I agree with how they want to go about it or not. I actually believe we should try to do something. So I'm asking. I'm just no.
Really confused. How does it help?
The gospel helps us in deal with suffering in this life.
But like, when dealing with suffering, how does it show ways in which it can help you deal with the struggles? Because like, if you look at the different testaments, they don't reflect the same. Because the Old Testament is more Jewish based, which follows the more Judaism and what's happening. So that is a lot older and follows a far different, whereas the Newer Testament was a more compiled out of a recent thing. So how does two conflicting testaments within one book help suffering within a world that is conflicted with not only one but 3 different holy sites that has been a lifelong thing? And like, how does that help? How does that help? Because also, as a person who has been conflicted and has been ostracized by church, and like going on a different thing and has been conflicted between Christianity and a more spiritualness through pagan outreach, how does it help? Because as a person who has been lost and conflicted with my own things, how does the book help? How does that help the suffering of all the people? Like, I understand that it is a gospel, but it is a monotheistic when there's so many confusions and when there's not a lot of understandings. Because if you look at the modern times with all the news, if you break it down, the news is very polytheistic because there's so many. And there's not enough of that one. So how can, once again, 2 conflicting testaments within that one book, which has very different variations, how can all of those different variations, even within the own Christian faith, that is different within itself between Catholicism, Protestant, Lutheran, Baptism, those are all different within one same God. And if you look back at the 3 holy sites that are all mono-religion, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are all God. God has different names. How does that help the ones now that are lost, that are confused? How does that help? Because that's the same question I have for both. How does one side help? And when you try to go back and you think about a lot of the relatabilities, especially now, unfortunately, they see Christ as you, which is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white, which is unfortunately enemy number one that has been ingrained within everybody. So how can you try to help what has been ingrained as fear? And then how can you then reach out and then preach the things, because it's not just about what the book says, it's also about how it got weaponized back in the 1700s and back during like the Crusades. So one thing that got weaponized, and if you look back at how it takes 2 times as long to unlearn it, how can that help? And that's the main question, is how does it help?
So help in regard to that there must be a problem, right?
There's problems everywhere, because if you look at the Bible talks about in the New Testament, all of the things which Jesus did. He went out and he helped. That was his main thing. That was his whole preaching. But then you had everybody in the modernizations that then took something, weaponized it for their own uses. Once again, how can one help? Because Christianity says to be Christ-like. But then how can one be Christ-like? But if you go back into that same book, which then talks about skin of bronze and hair of wool, and you look back at the geological demographics of where it's at, where there's nothing in there, how can that help? And then how can you branch out and reach out and ask those questions? And then how can you also then reach out to people that are lost and that are terrified? How does that help and reach out?
First, I want to say that there is a problem.
Absolutely.
We believe that there's sin in the world and it corrupts all things. Therefore, I'm flawed. He's flawed, probably more than others. Just kidding. But we're all flawed. And so, unfortunately, we're going to mess things up.
Right.
But that's the whole point.
But doesn't it say that the main reason that he lived and died was because he forgave everything? So if he'd forgive everything that has happened, is happened, and will happen, as long as you then believe, because that was the main thing. But if you're saying that there's all of this sin and there's all of these things, but if you think about it, and I have asked this question, if you think about it, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So it's just a constantly loop of just how it's going to be channeled. So the question is if you're saying that it's sin, then what makes such a holy place yet be so filled with sin, and yet how does that help the sin? How can you help all of it?
Right. There is no place that is truly holy on this earth. The only holy place is in the presence of God, and that is in heaven itself. So I do think. So your earlier question was how there seems to be like a conflict.
What was your question one more time?
My main question is
Like
how
Old and New Testament,
does
how do they work together? Because they seem to be conflicting.
it's not only the fact that it's conflicting, it's the fact of you have two things that are contradicting each other within one book that is fairly new compared to the other religions. And then you're talking about how you're wanting to come in and do all these things, but it's like, how can you help them? Right? How can that go and help? And that's my main question.
How can you decipher the differences in being Christ-like? Which ones do you follow? What do you do?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? What was it?
How can you distinguish someone who?
No, with the multiple instructions, with the instructions that are in the Bible that conflict, how do you decide which one to follow to be Christ-like? Simpler question. With the two conflicting instructions, how do you choose which one to follow to be Christ-like?
Because it's very hard to go without sin.
And
how do you sin less?
So
no, go ahead.
This is good.
So there's two different testaments: the Old Testament, the New Testament. So God was working.
How do you pick which one, though? I mean, I want a shorter answer. I deal with this all the time. Shorter answer: how do you decide which one to go with?
Well, they're both in the.
But they're conflicting. They're conflicting, though. So
How so?
one says to be pro-life, one says to be or pro-choice. How do you choose which one to follow? How do you, as a human, not God? How do you choose which of the two instructions to follow? Hypothetically, there's both options in there, both instructions. Hypothetically, in the Bible, they say to be pro-life and they also say to be pro-choice. How do you pick which one? They're conflicting.
But you see, I don't think there is two of those choices. Like I don't think.
And you refuse to answer hypothetical. I just said hypothetically. I'm trying to pick two things, one with an opposite side. It can be anything. I mean, you can actually have an affair, you can't have an affair. I'm saying there's many, I'm not great on the Bible, I'm not going to lie, but yes, there are conflicting things in the Bible, so how do you pick which one to follow to be Christ-like? Old Testament or New Testament, I guess, is what you're...
So Christ died.
So Old
now
Testament
we're
or New
not
Testament?
under the Old Covenant or the Old
So
Testament.
New Testament. New Testament. Okay, sorry, you guys should really just shorten up these answers because some people are actually trying to understand. So New Testament. You go with the New Testament. Old Testament's out.
Okay.
No. You're saying that's where the confliction is going to be what's in the old and the new.
That's
so
not what
if you,
I'm not saying there's a confliction. You're saying there's a confliction.
there are conflictions. Is what I'm saying.
I'm saying that
there are.
That they agree.
There are
they're
is what I'm
compatible.
saying. So you're saying to go, the way to choose and follow and be Christ-like is to go with the New Testament. If it's in the New Testament, it overrides the Old Testament, is what you're saying.
Could you show me a confliction?
Could you answer a question straight? And actually, the answer is going to be no. Have you guys ever heard of Westboro Baptist Church?
Yes.
You should go talk to them and hang out with them because you guys would fit in perfect with them. You're not actually providing any actual assistance or help, any ideas of what to do. They stand across and they just hold signs. And I've actually interviewed them and talked to them in any which way, positive and negative. And they don't do anything except for stand out, talk about God and their own personal relationship. You're not even pushing like the relationship. I mean, that's what you're here for. That's all you're here for, and that's what you should stop trying to divert around it. You guys came out here. They're curious what you're here for, so they started asking questions. Why don't you just say straight out, "This is what I'm here for," and stop, trying to not answer their questions? That's the thing.
I'm trying to answer your question.
You haven't answered the question. I asked very simple questions. I even cut my question down. I made it simple. You had him do it. He basically what he said is go with the New Testament. If this conflicting.
Question?
What?
Are you understanding his question? Okay. Could you explain to me
Well,
what
he's
he's
trying to say if they're if the Old Testament, if they're conflicting, how
I
are
am
you
a sinner.
deciding to
How
follow
would I
which? Like, when
pick a-
do you just throw out what's in the Old Testament? Like, do those laws not matter?
Okay.
My new
Those,
bestie.
like, yeah, that's the question.
And I'm a person
I was
that's very,
kind of.
very
I'm sorry.
confused.
Okay, well, you're good. You're
apologize.
good.
I
What's
was
the answer?
So it is one book that works together. So from the Old and New Testament, they're one big story about Christ. They're all about Christ. Now, so early, the law was given to the Jewish people. The first
Christ
5 books.
is not mentioned in the Old Testament.
Yes, let me get there.
Okay,
So-
you're taking way too long. This is how you guys lose people. So I'm trying to be helpful. I do this all the time with anti-choicers. I'm sorry, at Planned Parenthood. I even help the newbies to no, you need to work on this, do this, follow a lead. You guys need some more mentoring. I'm just gonna say because you're not answering questions and you're not even.
I'm trying to answer.
We're trying to answer the question.
It's a very long answer.
Okay, well,
If you ask an in-depth, long question,
That's a massive question.
Okay.
It's a long answer.
So,
Well,
one big story. The law was given. The law it shows the holiness of God and how sinful man is. So, unless you follow all of the laws in the first 5 books, the Torah, unless you follow all 600 of these laws perfectly, then you can be perfect like God. But unfortunately, no one can.
so the Torah is what we follow then, not the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Torah is the most important.
Let me keep going.
No.
Okay.
Okay, go
We
ahead.
try to follow the law, but it's impossible to follow the law because God is holy. He's a good and holy God. We had sinned against Him. Adam and Eve sinned in the garden. God gave us the law to give us a moral compass. We couldn't follow the law. Israel keeps going astray. They keep sinning against God. They keep rebelling against God. God punishes them. Eventually, they go into exile. This is the whole Old Testament, okay? But God eventually is promising a Messiah that will come out of the tribe of David, out of the line of David, all the way from the beginning of Genesis through the prophet Isaiah, through many, many different books of the Bible. It all speaks of this kingly Messiah that will come.
Okay, you guys know the story about Jesus? I just have to ask because, okay, you're telling about how the Bible came about. So I think I'm saying, I just checked, we understand. So I'm trying to help you get to the
That's
point.
okay. And so this Messiah comes in the person of Christ. He's prophesied many, many years. And then he comes into the person of Christ. And he has a ministry of compassion and of love and of healing. And then he dies, he's buried, and is resurrected.
Okay, well, guys, I gotta go because I have things to do. But good luck on actually hurting that up and actually getting across to somebody. Yeah.